Hi there, Sandra here, and today I've got a slightly different project for you. I'm making an insert for a box. This happens to be a wooden box that I made before Christmas, hence the rather Christmassy themed design on it. It's a hinged box. It is approximately 7 centimetres square on the inside, although obviously this part is slightly smaller than the lid because this part has an interior border. I've got various pieces cut out because what I'm doing is an insert to make it into a ring box, and I want the ring to pop up when the box is opened. Now, I vaguely remember as a child my grandmother had a box of a similar type, but unfortunately by the time I was an adult it had got lost or damaged or whatever, and I never saw it. And I suddenly decided, I feel like trying to make one of these. So I've made pop-ups before and I'm familiar with certain aspects of pop-up design. I do have some books on pop-up folds and things like that. And also, because I've made pop-up cards, I'm familiar with mechanisms, and that was really handy. The other place I found inspiration is from a wonderful paper architect designer, Peter Dahmen, and he has a couple of videos out on ring boxes where the ring is exposed when the box is opened up and the ring comes up. Absolutely stunningly beautiful boxes. So the box has got to have 2 pieces to line. Now, because the box isn't actually perfectly square on the inside, I need to make sure that it is round the right way. Let's just check. I think it probably needs to go round that way. Okay, this one, yeah, I think that will fit in there that way quite happily. Okay, so I got that sorted out. The first pieces I've got, which I want to sort out, are basically the foundation of the mechanism. Now this piece has, I put a score line in there. Now I cut this on a laser, so my score line is rather a bit heavier than I intended because I was using a different type of card. But it doesn't fold in half, it has a flap here as well. So I actually want to put some tape in between the two to keep it together. It doesn't have to go from side to side necessarily, I just want to keep it folded as it should be. So I'm just going to put some tape down here. Trying to lift it up. There we go. First piece sorted. So it's just got a slot in the middle. Now this one also has a fold line, and so I'm going to put another piece of tape on here. Now, if your box is slightly different size, you should be able to upscale this. It shouldn't be that difficult to make it a little bit bigger. What you need to do is make sure that it's going to fit properly inside, in that it's not going to be too wide to stop the box from closing. So although that is very nearly 7mm wide, this is only 6.5. I didn't want to risk having it catching on the sides. This is going to go on here, folded side to the front. So this is a fold, and this is going in the very base. And what I need to do is to stick that on top of there. So again, another piece of tape. You could put it on top of, but this makes it look neater, and so that's what I've chosen to do. So trim off the excess. So this piece, remember, is slightly narrower than the box piece. I'm going to take this piece off for the moment because it'd be easier to put this on. There is a very slight overlap on each side. So hopefully that will now fit in to the base. There we go, that fits in perfectly. Now that is quite a nice snug fit, so in fact it wouldn't need gluing, but normally you have to glue them inside. Now I'm trying not to glue these inside because I've done several of these and I didn't want to use a fresh box every single time. And if I make some more designs, I want to be able to take the insert out and just reuse the box. So this is going to be our mechanism. The ring is actually going to go in this part. This part here is trimmed so that it doesn't catch on the lid, doesn't interfere with the closing. So that's trimmed shorter, that's why that's trimmed shorter. And this part here can go in there. All right, so we're getting there. We haven't got that many pieces left. So these pieces have been cut and scored. Now the trouble is, it's actually quite difficult to fold this properly in some cases. This card isn't too bad, but if you're making it from a heavier card, this is a relatively lightweight black card, and the scoring is allowing that to fold quite well. But if it's a very heavy card and your scoring isn't sufficient, then you'll find it really hard to fold it because you have all these little cutouts. The inside of this, the cross side, has to be folded into a valley fold. Now, because the card is relatively thin, this isn't looking too difficult to do. Sometimes it can be quite hard to reverse a fold. So there we go. Now if you want to, of course, you could score it by hand. This is done obviously with a laser. If you're going to score by machine, then I would suggest you put in a scoring tool. Don't do it with a blade because you will damage the card so much that what will end up happening is it'll end up splitting relatively soon after you've made it. So those sides go in and it goes up like that. Now one of these flaps gets folded that way and the other one goes in the opposite direction, and that's one of the pieces done. Pretty straightforward. Just got to do the other one and I'll come back in a moment. So I have both of these done, and now what I need to do is to put glue on that one and stick it to this one. Now this is the front of the box. This is the piece which has got the short piece on the back there. So this is going on there and it should fit perfectly. Now because it's got such a delicate filigree design, I'm going to use, unusual for me, a stick glue, because this is probably the easiest way of making sure you get plenty of glue on the back of it, but you don't get it somewhere else. It should fit exactly side to side, and then you just push it up to the join in the front. And then this one doesn't go on this short piece, it goes on the long piece there, which is another part of my paper because I don't want to put it onto a glued area because that would make a real mess. Now you can do this with it flat on the desk if you haven't put it in the box already, but I thought it'd be easier to show you where it's actually ending up if I did it in situ. So that's those two pieces on. They're well fitted, they're in the centre, so yep, that works fine. So now I need to put glue on this one, and that's going to go right to the front of the box. Make sure you don't skew it, but it needs to go to the front of the box to do its job properly. So it will fold up and let it sit there. Try and make sure it's in the middle. There we go. Now you could do this with contrasting colours, of course, but I've chosen just to do it in the one, just for ease of cutting it out. Because this is a demonstration one, I don't really fancy messing around with different colour cards, but you could if you wished. So this one goes into the back, again making sure it's in the centre. There we go. And let it dry. Now this is going to pop out simply because there's no glue putting the bases in, because I can literally lift this out. I'm not going to do it at the moment because I know what happens. It will fall apart if I lift it out before the glue's dried, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it to one side. So how does it hold the ring? We have some pieces here. These are just decorative bits, and this is the main thing for holding the ring. Now in the file you'll find this one. You may need to make it bigger. You may need, if you've got very tiny fingers and a very tiny ring, want to make it smaller. This ring here will hold into this quite happily. So make sure it's big enough to hold the ring. And then obviously this slit needs to be wide enough. Now this is a very narrow one, this will go through very, very easily. But I'm not going to be putting any fold marks on either side. I'm just going to literally fold it in half in this particular case because it has such a narrow band. Then the bottom of it, about 1/2 centimetre, I'm just going to fold up, and these are going to form little legs, and those are going to be what holds everything in place. Now these flowers are very flat at the moment, and ideally you just want to give them a little bit of shape. Now this is just a piece of card that I made. It's a blank of the decorative piece that's in here. So it's a blank of this, but it shows you where the fold lines are. But one of the handy things that you can do is you can line that up with the center and you can actually fold it. So you can fold it diagonally and horizontally, pop it in the center and let it fold. It's a lot easier to fold it within something than it is to fold it on its own. Now this has a bit of shape to it, and in fact, if I find the right edges, it would actually fold up in the same way, there we go, as that folds up. Alright, so it will collapse, but that just gives it a little bit of volume. It's never going to get really, really squashed when the box closes. This is just to make it look better. Actually, no, that one's not going to go through. Okay, just take off a tiny bit off of the corners, just so I can feed it through better. There we are. And because it's a tight fit, take it gently, work it up, but it will then stay there, you see. It's not going to slip down because it is a tight fit. And then we can put the other ones on like so. So we have our flower. Now the piece that holds the ring is going to need to be opened out just a little bit. You can wheel a nail in there or whatever. Or do what I'm doing, which is using a cheap dress ring to do the rest of it. Those little legs are going to come out like that. And then with the legs vertical, it's going to go right in the center of that little V shape. Now this glue may not be strong enough to keep this in place, but we'll see. I would prefer to use a decent wood glue doing this, but as I said, this is just a mock-up. And making sure they are vertical, and it goes right in the center. You can push it in with your finger and close it up. Hold it there for a minute or two until the glue sets. Now you could do this with all sorts of different designs. I drew this pattern in Procreate using the symmetry tool. Took me about 2 minutes, and then I simply traced it in my Cutter software. I use shortcuts a lot for that. You could trace it in anything that you're using. And then you just put the ring in. That gets stuck in place, and there we have it. It will close. Now, because I've used a relatively thin card, this is only probably about 200 GSM, this box will stay closed. If you use a much heavier card, the chances are that your box will spring open, so you will need a clasp on your box. But this will stay shut. I will give you the file in SVG format, so you can cut that with a plotter. However, if you're doing a very delicate design, do make sure you've got your blade settings correct, because otherwise it will completely ruin the effect. But I'm pretty happy with that. Now you could do all sorts of other things. You could have folded butterflies, you could have feathers and wings and all sorts of stuff, but I just went with this. And give you a good look, and up it comes. It will even go flat, this particular one, and then you can have the ring literally pointing upwards. But because it's a box, the flower doesn't get flattened, and you get a truly beautiful presentation of a ring. Just a shame I don't know anyone who's getting married or getting engaged or anything else like that to give a box to. But I hope you've enjoyed the video, and it's been great fun working out how to actually do this and to get the file just right. So I mentioned earlier the gentleman who is the paper architect engineer. I'll put a link down to his site down below. Down there, down here, that's it, down here. And that way you'll be able to have a look at the various things that he's got there. He does have some tutorials that he's made, and he's also got this of places that you will find inspiration, whether it be books or websites and things like that. Very much worth looking at. And yeah, it's a deep rabbit hole that you could end up going down. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon. Take care now.